just starting kind of at the top of marketing and PR, really, which are two things that I know you dance in quite often in teaching and practicing. And something about the transformation of marketing and PR, this need for a new curriculum, right, for these emerging professionals. The CMO is such an interesting role, especially in 2022. The modern day marketing leader is such an interesting person on the executive leadership team. And so much is changing, as you know. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on just, the marketing and PR world. What's this transformation you speak of, and what are you seeing in the spaces?
What we've identified is, several really important trends that seem to be redefining the role of the chief marketing or the chief communications leader. And there are some who would argue, the role of marketing and PR is the same. Perhaps the tools have changed or perhaps the context has changed. But I think some of the shifts that we've observed are radical enough that they require us all as professionals to think about, how we do our jobs and most importantly, how we have impact. And from my perspective, obviously, I'm interested in the piece that's about how can I support a professional's development in learning and training and, research or thinking about this role. So the ones we've identified as I think really critical is one is about globalization. Yes, and what I mean by that is that it's really about the fact that we always thought about global markets, international markets, as certainly US Western companies, as places where we could sell more product. This is a chance to get our product out into markets outside the US or markets outside the home market. As people became more sophisticated, they thought about, how do we localize our product? How do we become more culturally and locally relevant? And then they moved into the worlds of even purchasing local brands and seeing if they could bring them into their infrastructure. But I think that notion of globalization is shifting, continues to shift, and I talk about it in the context of the importance of influence and innovation. Yes, or the globalization of influence and innovation. What I mean by influence, is that what you do in southern China and how you treat your workers there, or where you supply product, source products, can have an enormous impact on people's perceptions of you as a brand. Even in your home market, or more positive spin, the role of influencers in social media, etc., has a whole different sort of value in a market like China or India than it might have in the US. And so, there are global forces shaping how people perceive your brand. The second thing is a ton of innovation, and it seems silly almost to say it because it's self-evidently true. A ton of innovation is happening outside of the home market, and I think a lot of global marketers or marketers, who work for large multinational companies, have to get their heads around the fact that not everything happens at the home office. Not all innovation happens at the home office. And like any good marketer, being very sensitive to customers' needs and customers' uses and things like that will enable you to source innovation globally. So that's a piece we talk about is globalization. The second thing we talk about, again, it's well understood now, but is having a continual and deep impact on the role of CMOs and CCOs is the whole field of data and technology, digital data technology, however you want to characterize it. I think we've all seen the power of data to give us new insights and to provide a kind of a whole new sort of quantitative, but in some sense qualitative view of the customer. And we're working to figure out how to leverage that, but also the increasing automation of marketing technology. CMOs typically are spending more than the CIO on technology in some companies.
Wow.
So technology, MarTech, AdTech, ComTech, whatever piece of the puzzle it is, that's obviously, it's not a new thing for CMOs. We've had CRM, we've had all sorts of other things, but it's integral part of how we do our jobs is arguably more important. I think one that I find fascinating and is, a very significant shift, which we saw illustrated in Cannes this year, and I'll give some examples, is this whole idea of reputation and trust. So as marketers, you could argue we've always been at some level concerned with building brands, enduring brands people trust, brands people love. But I think what's also shifted significantly in the business world is that people look no longer to to government and politics and journalism and the church or whatever as a source of sort of truth and trust, but they're looking to businesses, for-profit enterprises to provide some kind of meaning or purpose, or at least be a trusted voice in providing information, or a trusted partner in getting them food when they're in a lockdown and things like that. The stories from Shanghai where we're very active are legion, with companies actually taking a much larger role in serving people in that community than the government was able to. So this whole notion of reputation and trust, very closely followed by folks like Edelman, in the Trust Barometer, or Reuters does some really good work in this space. And the related shift among consumers from what we sometimes talk about from value, what's something worth to me, to values, do I identify with the purpose and mission and goals broadly of that company. That's very important, and we can learn a ton as marketers from the PR folks. And then the next one is this idea of the integration of marketing and PR, which I think you started to allude to a little bit. And I mean, there's been this sort of friendly, I think I once called it Cain and Abel rivalry between marketing and PR. I started, on the marketing side of that, but I now obviously manage and lead and support a faculty and a large group of students studying PR. So I've come to learn a lot more about, that function and what it adds. But the thing that's clearly true is, in this omni-channel environment where you have so many different touch points and so much transparency, you can't really any longer say, oh, well, that's the message we put out to the regulators, and oh, that's what we tell the the investment community, and this is the story we run with in the trade press, but then this is the brand marketing we do. All of those things are highly integrated and need to be coordinated and thought through in a more integrated fashion. So, those at least are some of the more sort of salient large trends that we've started to really, they have meaningful impact in how you do your job today, I think, as a marketer.
This podcast is brought to you by Salesforce and the CMO Club. The CMO Club is a global community for senior marketing executives to come together, share ideas, and solve their toughest challenges in a collaborative and trusted environment with other marketing leaders. Salesforce and the CMO Club provide best-in-class programs, events, and a digital platform for marketing leaders to come together and be inspired like never before. Join our global community at thecmoclub.com.